Welcome to Energy Linguist, a sacred space for awakening souls ready to receive divine transmissions and the raw truth that sets them free. I am Laura Ahern, a spiritual channel and energy translator here to bring through messages from highest guidance to help you hear your inner knowing, reclaim who you are beneath the noise, and live from the truth within. Take a breath. You've found the space where remembering begins. Hello, everyone. It's Laura, the Energy Linguist here, and I am so excited to have you joining me again on Energy Linguist Podcast, a podcast where we decode your energy, heal your patterns, and awaken your path as I receive divinely channeled insight to help you illuminate what might feel dark or clouded in your own life. Thank you so much for being here. Today's message from Divine Guidance is one that a lot of us wrestle with, knowingly and unknowingly, but tends to be a huge core of what's in the way of us feeling fulfilled in our lives, feeling seen, feeling like we're enough, actually contributing ourselves to something that matters deeply to us. And so I'm really excited to jump right into this channel of light information to start giving you this message that divinity is bringing through. So today, the core of what divinity wants to speak to you about is about the suffering in sameness. The warped reality that we've been existing in that tells us we need to be like everyone else in order to avoid suffering. I hope you're already seeing the deceit here. The deceiver is that being like everyone else is actually what creates the suffering. And divinity's message to us today is the recognition around how much suffering exists when we are requiring and receiving our value from the outside world, meaning we have determined our own worth based on how others perceive us, based on the value they set upon us. Now, what's interesting is most people who are eager to place that value and determine that worth, they themselves are feeling pretty worthless about themselves. The truth is that those of us who are in our light, we don't have to put others down to feel up. We are naturally up, and we see the invaluable nature in all things. In fact, one of my most delighted in gifts from divinity is my ability to see people's highest potentials. It's actually what I work with when I work with clients one-on-one, because they show me with clarity and assuredness what is possible for someone. And it is within my conviction and belief in what they show me that others quite often come into believing it for themselves. And I watch every single time as they step into claiming it. What I'm showing people through this experience is what already exists in the infinite, what is already there for us to embrace and experience during this lifetime. And those highest potentials, those highest desires are available to you too. It's just that often we are in our own way, and a lot of it has to do with the value that we've placed upon ourselves. This silent, conditioned, subconscious conditioning that exists under the surface is typically operating and directing our lives from this darkness, meaning it has been practiced for so long that we innately just move into the patterns of what our worth setting is, whatever that worth thermostat setting has been set to. Now, this is the hard reality and truth that divinity is sharing today. When you arrived into your human body on this planet, your spirit came down and took form in this human form. You were in the embodiment and delight of your invaluable nature as a being. And it's only through the conditioning of our experiences from the external world, where we start to adjust that value and place a price tag on our own heads. These experiences happen from what we're observing outside of ourselves. So for most of you who might be familiar with how our brains are wired and how they develop over time, from the ages of infancy till about 2 or 3, our brains are coming into the development and connecting of this independent self, this independent I. And what exists within this time frame before we really have discovered or experience ourselves as being independent from the rest of the world, we aren't experiencing our world from a higher place of consciousness where we are looking at it and asking ourselves, do I like that or don't I like that? Do I agree with that or don't I agree with that? There's no discernment within that developmental stage. What happens is that when we are of that young age, we are a sponge and we are literally just looking to our external world, absorbing what's happening and making conclusions that this is the way the world works. So if you observed or absorbed dialogue that money was scarce or life was hard or marriage was hard, we start to have these unconscious programs coded in our mind that start to determine what is available to us within this lifetime. And it can be our immediate family, and it can also be outside in society. What do we hear about the world? What are we hearing about what is possible for us within the world, depending on if we were born as a male or a female, right? What is society reflecting and projecting towards us that tells us what we are capable of? And all of this absorption, this coding that is happening, is starting to determine our own value of what we actually think about ourselves, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe is possible for ourselves in the world. Now, as I'm channeling this message, I feel so much heart opening here. This opening and rawness that can happen when we start to realize that a value has been placed on us prior to our conscious awareness. But then what happens is we perpetuate it. We continue to act in alignment and accordance with this idea that we are less than. And we come from this habitual place often when we try to interact with the world. We often come from this place when we are trying to contribute of ourselves to the world. And for many of us women, what happens is these patterns of self-sacrifice and going without, or draining ourselves and depleting our resources, giving even when we don't have anything to give, especially if we saw that happen with our mothers or our grandmothers or other women dominantly in society. It happens this way for men too. We all have a different storyline, a different experience around what led us to this very infinitely unique conclusion that now runs our identity and who we behave as. Many of us souls on this planet are receiving our value from the way that others either approve or disapprove of us. And what that does is it leaves us starving for every next meal in our spiritual lives. When we are dependent on something outside of ourselves to tell us we are enough, to approve of our decisions, what happens is this energetic breakdown starts to happen in the core of our solar plexus around our self-trust, our self-worth, our own identity. We forget who we believe ourselves to be. They want me to clarify that. We are behaving as who we believe ourselves to be, but we have forgotten who we innately are at our core. Reliance on the external world to tell us we're beautiful, tell us we're valuable, tell us that our gifts and our dreams and our visions are good and important will cause us to sacrifice everything we came here to do. It sacrifices ourself. It sacrifices the vision. It sacrifices the dream. It sacrifices the souls who you have contracts with, the lives you're meant to touch when you recreate the mold and you step into this more powerful place of your being. And even for those of you who are hearing divinity talk right now and are saying, I don't have a big purpose, I don't have a big mission, I want to ask you, what's the value in changing one life? In sharing a smile that comes from your genuine heart center, that radiates love and way, that makes someone think twice about taking their own life potentially. Guys, I have had many clients who have expressed to me that they are still here on this planet because I saw them for the first time ever. Many of us souls feel lost within the experience of this world. The majority of us who are sensing we're lost are the empaths, the sensitive souls who are actually meant to shift this entire old paradigm into the new world and to help others rise into this new way of being. And yes, there are many more souls who are stuck than just empathic ones, but they are not necessarily aware of it. They are kind of plugged into that matrix of the superficial existence, and they haven't recognized that there's something wrong with the pattern. If you're a soul who is listening to this message right now, I can promise you that there's some sort of sense you have within you that something is not quite right with the way the world is, with the things you've been told and taught. Maybe you're a little radical by nature. Maybe you have this like revolutionist energy in you where you like to question authority. Maybe you're just simply curious and kind. Or maybe you know that there's so much more to this life than suffering and pain. And I can tell you, you're right. It can feel extraordinarily isolating to be spiritual in nature and empathically sensitive, and to try to exist within the mold that requires us to reject our sensitivity, that labels it as weakness, that actually condemns us for feeling. It's the abstinence of emotion is what I call it. Just abstain from, just don't do it, just don't feel it. And the problem with not allowing ourselves to move that vibration of experience through us is that it becomes repressed and stuck and stagnant. And it creates eventually physical manifestation of that imbalance in things like heart conditions, even as extreme as blood pressure issues or things like breast cancer. Now, I'll pause here and say as a disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I am simply channeling what divinity is telling me and has shown me with the thousands of clients I have treated around the globe, patterns in our field that give rise to physical imbalances. And much science is starting to prove what happens when we are emotionally dysregulated or mentally dysregulated, how those more invisible vibrations start to create this ripple effect that then creates an impact on our physical being and our physical bodies. So why does divinity want me to touch and talk about this? It's because it's easy with the way that we were raised in the old paradigm for us to want to discard the emotion because it can feel so volatile. It can feel so scary. We were told it is both. Many of us were. It was communicated to us that it was very inconvenient for us to be emotional and feel emotions. And divinity is asking you to consider that what you were taught is wrong, that our ancestors came with the wisdom that kept us safe and surviving. And it did for some time, until this divine feminine awakening began in 2012 with the disassembling of the old masculine paradigm and the ushering in of the divine feminine energies. What's happening within this awakening? We are currently in the largest, greatest awakening time ever known to humankind, where we are ascending to levels of consciousness that we have not ascended to in thousands of years. When this awakening began in 2012, what started happening was this crumbling of the old foundations, of the old paradigm in which the masculine energies, they weren't just running the way that we experienced our world, but they had become very dysregulated and out of balance over the course of that 26,000 year period that we are now breaking free from. It went from this essence of the strength of what I call the divine masculine into this hyper masculine, this very toxic, imbalanced energy that I'm not talking about men versus women here. I'm talking about of existing. All of us have been existing in it. And what it looks like is this energy of analyzing and figuring out and conquering, protruding, taking over, forcing, where we're just trying to compete and force creation. And all of that energy, the foundations that once were successful and worked when they worked, started to crumble. And those foundations no longer work. What works now within this awakening time is the ushering in of more balance, is the return to the divine masculine as we usher in the remembrance of the divine feminine, of the energies that are asking us to turn within and discover the power, not the weakness, that exists within yin energy, such as emotion. The yin essences of our very being exist in things like our ability to be vulnerably and uniquely us, that sensual part of our nature. It also exists in our ability to feel life. What divinity wants to remind your soul of is that you didn't come here to only experience joy or pain. Your spirit came here to experience what it's like to be in human form with this infinite experience of emotions. Just as we talked about in my last episode, we attempt quite often in human form to experience life through polarization of only wanting to experience the good and wanting to avoid the pain. And that's due to our evolutionary wiring. Our human self seeks pleasure and avoids pain. But our spiritual self and our human self are often at odds because our spiritual self wants it all of the experiences, all of the joy, all of the pain, the highs, the lows, everything in between. It is curious. It's ever expanding. It wants to know. It wants to derive wisdom from the experiences. And so we often forget that there is this seeking of both. And what they're inviting you into the remembering of is this spiritual nature, especially as it pertains to your divine feminine essence, of this willingness to open ourselves to be uniquely and vulnerably us, to open ourselves to feeling all of the things, not running from the things that are uncomfortable, and to open ourselves even further to the higher awareness of wisdom that is possible when we allow ourselves to do those first two things, be ourselves and love and derive wisdom from all experiences. When I tune into the collective energy for this reading, what divinity shows me is this cloudedness in the crown chakra and in the mind space, that third eye space, showing this clouded nature of our minds, with the minds really housing our thoughts and emotions, both of those components, including our beliefs. What they're telling me is that our minds, our emotions, and our thoughts are clouded with the overwhelm that gets created by trying to be enough based on the rules of the rest of the world, based on that measuring stick that the rest of the world is holding up to us. Now, the irony is the rest of the world isn't measuring up either, right? Because they're not in the freeness of their being, where they already have discovered that they're already inherently invaluable. But it's their fear and their pain that sets a standard of conditional worth that is attached to things like status or material or relationships, or looking a certain way, or living in a certain place, or having a certain level of education. Your worth is not those things. Your worth exists within this more intimate expression of your being, which is why the divine feminine is required for us to come within ourselves and be willing to see with the tenderness of a mother, that child and that being and that light that exists within us. What happens in the energy that I'm seeing here with this overwhelm that gets created with us trying to be enough is I see the energy of our sacral energy attached to it. And so what they're saying here is it's attaching and attacking our sacral energy, which is our ability to be uniquely ourselves and houses what we deeply desire to experience in this lifetime. It's our creative source, the material chakra of creation. What's interesting here is the messaging that if we continue to allow the external world to determine our value, then we abandon the deep desires and pleasure and beautiful creation that we came here to be a part of. We abandon it for the suffering of never being enough, to never having that well within us filled. If you listened to my previous episode, Divinity channeled about that well running dry. And there's a nuance here in that messaging around the awareness that unless we are filling that well from within us to allow it to overflow, we will never have enough. Specifically in this reading, as it pertains to how we feel about who and what we are, the value we're placing on our unique nature and the unique gifts we have to share. The answer to this dysregulated energy actually lies within our energies of our root chakra, the energy of being grounded and rooted in that which you already are. In fact, I have a very sacred community called Ionara, in which we do exactly that. In this community, we come back into rooting ourselves in what we innately are. Ionara was inspired by divinity, channeled to me as a new era of divine feminine awakening, of self-guided being. And so within Ionara, what we do is I help souls to come back into their own intuitive nature, to actually help them amplify and trust their spiritual gifts so that they can trust themselves and their path more, connecting them to their own spiritual gifts, teaching them that their sensitivity is their power. And there are souls all over the planet who are rising to this occasion. And I want to invite you to rise as well, to understand that your sensitive nature, your emotions, all of the things you've experienced don't determine your value. You do. And we can do it from a place of reorganizing what our experiences mean about us. There is a light within you that has a story to share. It has a unique vision that you and only you see. And it is meant to be shared in this world. Whether that be on a huge stage somewhere or whether that be in the comfort of your own home with your loved ones, you are meant to be you. We are meant to create a new light in this world. And what is necessary in order for us to confidently share that uniqueness that we are is a deep conviction in the way that we see the world. Through your own unique experiences, infinitely unique experiences, you have discovered something special. There's something that you know is important, that matters to you, a way in which only you see the world. Now, I love it because neuroscience proves this, and I love this just as an example. It anchors it in. The human brain has over 86 billion neurons. Each individual neuron can make up to 10,000 connections with other neurons. So do the math, right? The way in which we perceive our reality and experience our world and the way in which our neurons are connecting that information is infinitely unique, which means nobody else is experiencing the same reality as you. And there's something very different that you see about the world that you are meant to share. But divinity wants to invite you into something here, into having a willingness to do more than just dream. Many of us who are empaths in this world yearn for the world to be a better place. And yet what divinity is saying with this really forceful, encouraging energy is that you're dreaming, but you're not doing. Meaning you're staying in this victimization of focusing on the problem and wishing it was better without a willingness to contribute yourself to something greater. And so in order for this self-worth that they're talking about to be ignited within us, we have to be willing to decide what we value most, what matters most to us, why it matters, to filter through what is so unique about the way in which we see the world, and decide how we can contribute ourselves to the thing that matters most. What is something new that you can create in this world if you allowed yourself to be what you truly are, to contribute of yourself, of what truly matters to you? What's really beautiful is that for anybody listening who says, oh my God, yes, I'd love to, but I don't really know where to even start, I have an incredible program called Consciousness Recoded, in which one of the lessons dives deep into this, where we literally break down with exercises and practices what matters, what we value, what our unique calling is, so we can really get clear on what our own soul's calling is. We actually start to recode what you believe and recode your value. Now, the reason that I actually have a program around this is because what divinity is channeling about right now isn't always easy, because a lot of the times the things that we care so much about or maybe pass judgment on a lot were never our values to begin with. A lot of them have been coded in us. They have been programmed in us, just as I explained earlier in this episode. And so what's really necessary in order for us to clear that fog around who and what we are, and to come into the embodiment of our uniqueness and to embrace this invaluable nature, is sifting through the old and keeping what is uniquely and innately us. Divinity wants you to know that you always have a choice in the way that you not only perceive the world, but in how you act in accordance with what you're perceiving. And so their final invitation to you today is to use your power of choice to choose to pause and to look at what your actions, maybe it's pattern behavior, maybe it's the way you're spending your day, what is that communicating to the universe that you believe about yourself, that you believe about your life, that you believe about your value? What is that action saying about what you believe yourself to be? And if you are making choices that are undermining your value, divinity is inviting you to choose differently, one step at a time, knowing that if you're hearing this message, then they absolutely believe in your power to put this advice into action. And to know that if you want the support to expedite this process so that you don't have to struggle through it with lack of clarity, that I am here to help support you. You can visit lauraahern.com to find out more ways in which I can support you in this. And in the meantime, know that you are held in the arms of divine light in all of your experiences. No matter how you have judged them, no matter how you have labeled them, you are beyond them. And your life is yours to choose, as is your value. This is Laura Ahern, the Energy Linguist, and it's been my honor. I cannot wait to be with you for our next episode. Thank you for being here, for listening with your heart, and for opening to the truth meant just for you. If this transmission resonated, I invite you to visit lauraahern.com for free resources and sacred support to help you accelerate your awakening and walk your path with more power, trust, and grace. Until next time, trust what you feel, honor what you know, and believe in your power to create something greater than you've ever imagined.